The sky outside my window had already deepened to a bruised violet, heralding the end of another day. I sat in silence on the hospital bed, my back straight against the crisp white, perfectly fluffed pillow. The air was thick with the characteristic smell of antiseptic, a scent familiar to anyone who had ever spent time in a hospital. After 5 years of life with Andrew, my surgeon husband, that smell had become something normal, almost comforting. But today, for some reason, it brought no peace. Instead, it stirred a vague, inexplicable anxiety in my soul. Tomorrow, I was scheduled for a major heart operation. My condition was congenital. My heart had never been strong, and now the illness had flared up just when I felt happiest. I had lived 5 years of marriage in the absolute care and love of Andrew. He was a talented cardiothoracic surgeon, the pride of Boston General Hospital, the man to whom I had entrusted my life completely. He was always gentle and attentive. Every pill I took, every meal I ate, everything was under his control. "Honey, how are you feeling?" Andrew's deep, velvety voice pulled me from my thoughts. He entered the room, still in his white coat, the usual soft smile on his lips. He sat down carefully on the edge of the bed, his large, warm hand covering mine. "I'm fine," I smiled back, trying to hide the growing unease inside me. "Just a little nervous, that's all." Andrew squeezed my hand gently, looking at me with tenderness. "Don't worry, my love. I'll be performing the surgery myself tomorrow. I won't allow a single mistake. You have to trust me." I nodded and rested my head on his shoulder. His embrace was as strong and warm as ever. He was right. I had to trust him. He was my husband, the best surgeon, my entire world. After telling me to get to sleep early, he kissed my forehead gently and left, saying he had a few more things to prepare for the operation. The room fell silent again, broken only by the steady ticking of the wall clock. A short while later, the door creaked open, and a young nurse came in carrying a set of surgical scrubs. I didn't recognize her face. She must have been new. She smiled pleasantly. "Clara, I'm here to help you change." She drew the pale green curtain around the bed, creating a small, private space. In that confined area, she began to unfold the surgical gown, but what happened next made me freeze. From under the hospital garments, she pulled out a bundle of old, worn clothing and quickly shoved it into my hands. Her palms were icy and trembling. She glanced nervously toward the door, then leaned close to my ear and whispered urgently, each word piercing my mind like a needle. "He's not going to save you. Change into this. Tonight, at 10 p.m., leave through the service exit by the morgue. Don't let anyone see you. Hurry, or you will die." Having said this, she immediately stepped back, still holding the surgical gown as if nothing had happened. Loudly enough to be heard from outside the curtain, she said, "Take your time changing. I'll wait outside." She quickly left, drawing the curtain shut and closing the door behind her. I sat on the bed, frozen like a statue. The bundle of old clothes in my hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy. The nurse's words rang in my ears cold, terrifying, persistent. Confusion, fear, and a furious denial seized my mind. Why? Why would she say that? Andrew loves me so much. How could he possibly want to harm me? The nurse was long gone, but I remained motionless, clutching the crumpled bundle. Her words replayed in my head like a broken record, clashing with the images of Andrew's love and care over the years. This was absurd, insane. It had to be a mistake. Or maybe the nurse was unwell, or someone had sent her to destroy our family. I clung to the most rational explanations, but my heart was pounding violently. Then I remembered. About 6 months ago, Andrew started getting strange phone calls. Each time, he would step out onto the balcony and speak in a whisper, then immediately delete the call from his history. I also recalled walking in on him at his laptop once. He slammed the lid shut, a flicker of panic on his face. At the time, I'd naively assumed he was planning a surprise for me. I trusted him too much, so much that I dismissed the slightest shadow of doubt. I looked at the clock. The hand was slowly creeping toward 10. The nurse's words echoed in my mind again. Tonight, at 10 p.m., through the service exit by the morgue. The morgue. The word alone sent a chill down my spine. To run from here. If she was lying, I would derail a crucial operation, and Andrew would go crazy with worry. But if what she said was true, then staying here was the same as walking to my own execution. The internal struggle was suffocating me. In the end, the instinct for self-preservation won. I couldn't gamble with my own life. Even if there was a 1 in a million chance that she was telling the truth, I had to try. With trembling hands, I took off my hospital gown and pulled on the old clothes the nurse had brought. They were too big for me, but that didn't matter now. At exactly 10 p.m., I took a deep breath and opened my door a crack. The hallway was empty, lit only by a dim yellow light reflecting off the polished linoleum. The on-duty nurse sat at her station with her back to me. On tiptoe, I slipped out of the room, hugging the wall, trying not to make a sound. My heart was beating so loudly I thought everyone must hear it. Just as I neared the end of the hall, where it turned toward the fire escape, I froze. I saw Andrew's silhouette near the main lobby. He was standing and talking to a security guard. He was still in his white coat, but his posture was far from calm. His hand was pointing directly toward my room. He was saying something I couldn't hear, but that decisive gesture and the cold look in his eyes filled me with an unparalleled terror. Those weren't the eyes of a husband worried about his wife. They were the eyes of a jailer checking his cell. All my doubts vanished. The nurse's warning was true. I darted back and slipped through the heavy fire escape door right beside me. The door closed, plunging me into the darkness and stale air of the stairwell, leaving behind the false world I had once considered paradise. I grabbed the cold wall and began to feel my way down the steps, consumed by a chilling fear. The sound of my own footsteps echoed in the silent space, making my skin crawl. On each floor, I paused and listened, terrified that someone would spot me and give chase. Only when a heavy metal door appeared before me, leading to a narrow alley behind the hospital, did I finally allow myself to exhale. The alley was dirty and cramped, a complete contrast to the clean, respectable facade of the hospital. I pulled up my collar, trying to hide my face, and walked quickly toward the main street. The night wind cut through me, and I shivered, whether from the cold or from fear. I hastily hailed a cab on the corner. The driver, a middle-aged man, gave me a suspicious look. He probably found it strange to see a woman in shabby clothes emerging from the back of a hospital in the middle of the night. "To the Gateway Inn, near South Station, please," I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. I gave the first address that came to mind, a place Andrew would never think to look. The car sped through the night, carrying me away from the place that had so recently been my hope for life and had nearly become my grave. The streetlights slid across my face and blurred. Skyscrapers and bright storefronts receded behind us. For the last 5 years, I had been used to living in a spacious brownstone on Beacon Hill, to fine dining and expensive vacations. And tonight, I was in the back of a taxi, racing into the unknown with only a few $100s and a dead phone in my pocket. The inn turned out to be a shabby building tucked into a tight courtyard. I paid the driver and found the only lit entrance in a narrow alley. The woman at the front desk was watching TV. Seeing me, she looked up and eyed me with distrust. I quickly explained that I'd come from upstate to visit relatives, but had missed the last bus and needed a place to stay for the night. Thankfully, she didn't ask questions, took $150 from me, and handed me a key to a room on the second floor. The room was tiny and dilapidated, containing only a bed, a radiator that hissed quietly in the corner, and a yellowed plastic table. It smelled of dampness and cigarette smoke. I locked the door, then carefully slid the deadbolt into place. Only then did I allow myself to slide down to the cold floor, my back against the door. And that's when the loneliness and panic truly hit me. Everything I knew had collapsed. My husband, the man I loved more than anyone, turned out to be the one who wanted to kill me. I sat in the darkness of a strange room, tears silently streaming down my cheeks. I didn't sleep a wink all night. I sat huddled in the corner until the first faint rays of a new day seeped through a crack in the blinds. My body was numb with exhaustion, but my mind was surprisingly clear. The nighttime fear gradually receded, replaced by 1,000 unanswered questions. Why was Andrew doing this? Why would he want to kill me? And who was that nurse who had risked her life for me? I knew I couldn't hide forever. I needed to face the truth, no matter how monstrous it was. With trembling hands, I took the phone out of my pocket. It had died during the night. I plugged it in, waited a few moments, and pressed the power button. The screen lit up, and I was hit by an avalanche of notifications, texts, missed calls through messaging apps, regular calls. I counted 37 missed calls and nearly 20 text messages. Every single one was from one person, Andrew. My heart began to race. I took a deep breath and opened the messages. The first was sent around midnight. "Honey, where are you? I went to your room and you're gone. Call me back immediately. I'm so worried." The second, about an hour later. "Clara, don't scare me like this. If you're upset about something, just tell me. Don't just leave. You're sick. This is dangerous." But the closer it got to morning, the more the tone of the messages changed. The initial concern was replaced by irritation and impatience. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Do you have any idea how worried everyone is?" And the last message, sent just an hour ago, made my blood run cold. "Clara, I'm giving you 1 more hour. If you don't call back, I'm reporting you missing to the police. Don't test my patience." Not a single question about whether I was okay or if something had happened. Only interrogations, commands, and threats. A husband who was genuinely worried about his wife would never write like that. I decided I had to call him back. I had to hear his voice to confirm my suspicions. I dialed his number. He answered instantly, as if he'd been waiting with the phone in his hand. "Clara, where are you?" Andrew's voice was sharp and annoyed. "It's me," I said, trying to make my voice sound weak and frightened. "I'm sorry. I got so nervous last night. I went to stay with a friend." "What friend? Where does she live?" He bombarded me with questions, showing no concern for why I had left. "Tell me the address. I'll come get you right now. The surgery can't be postponed." His words were like a bucket of ice water. The surgery again. Even now, all he could think about was getting me back on that operating table. I don't want to come back yet," I answered, my voice trembling. "I'm still really scared. Can I stay here for another day or two?" A sudden silence on the other end made me tense up completely. I could almost picture Andrew's face darkening with rage. After a few seconds, he spoke, his voice restrained but unable to hide its sharpness. "Clara, stop acting like a child. Your condition is not a joke. I'm your husband, and I'm your doctor. Don't you trust me?" The words sounded convincing, but they only made me feel colder. He was pressuring me, using both his status as a husband and his authority as a doctor. "I do trust you, but I'm just really scared. Maybe we could postpone the surgery for a little while?" I suggested cautiously. "No!" Andrew practically shouted into the phone. All his patience had vanished. "No postponements. You need to have the surgery immediately. Where are you? Tell me now." "I can't say. My friend doesn't want to be disturbed." I spoke evasively on purpose, my heart pounding wildly. "What friend? You're lying. You don't have any close friends in Boston besides Chloe. I already called her. She said she has no idea where you are." Andrew's voice turned icy. "Clara, don't push me. I've already sent people to look for you. If you don't come back on your own and they find you, the consequences won't be good." His blatant threat stunned me. He wasn't just pressuring me anymore, he was intimidating me. The mask of the loving husband had completely fallen away, revealing his true, despotic, and merciless face. I realized I couldn't continue the conversation. Every extra word could give me away. "I'm very tired. I'm hanging up," I blurted out and immediately ended the call, not giving him a chance to say another word. I collapsed onto the bed, the phone falling onto the old mattress. My breathing was ragged, and I was shaking all over. Now everything was crystal clear. There were no doubts left. My husband really wanted to kill me. That surgery was a death trap. I was lucky to have escaped, but now he was hunting for me. What could I do? How long could I hide in this miserable motel? My thoughts were a tangled mess. I felt cornered, alone, and completely helpless. I was afraid to go outside, afraid to call anyone, afraid to leave the slightest trace. I was like a wounded bird hiding in a dark hole while a predator prowled outside. I needed help. But who could I trust now? My parents had died in a car accident several years ago, leaving me a considerable inheritance. Besides Andrew and his family, I had almost no close connections in this city. I scrolled desperately through my phone's contacts. Familiar names flashed by, but they all felt like strangers. Our friends were almost all mutual friends of ours as a couple. Andrew had surely called them all by now. I couldn't put anyone else in danger. Then my eyes landed on one name, Kevin. My cousin, my mother's brother's son. He was a department head at a large insurance company. We weren't particularly close because he lived and worked in another city, but he had always been kind to me since we were kids. He was probably the only person I could trust right now. Gathering all my courage, I dialed his number. After a few rings, a sleepy voice answered. "Hello? Clara. Why are you calling so early?" "Kevin," my voice broke. I was on the verge of tears. "Please, help me." Hearing the distress in my voice, Kevin was instantly awake. "Clara, what's wrong? Calm down and tell me everything, step by step." I took a deep breath and tried to explain everything as concisely as I could. The nurse's warning, my nighttime escape, the threatening phone call with Andrew. Kevin listened in silence, not interrupting once. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, obviously trying to process the incredible story I had just told him. "Clara, listen to me," he finally said, his voice low and dead serious. "Tell me, has Andrew had you sign any papers recently, especially anything related to finances or insurance?" His question struck me like lightning. I froze. Yes, there was one time. I suddenly remembered, about 3 months ago, on our wedding anniversary. Andrew came home early from work. He had prepared a romantic candlelit dinner, and then he pulled out a rather thick folder of documents. He said it was an investment and savings package for our future together, so our future children would want for nothing. At that moment, I was intoxicated with happiness and trusted him unconditionally, so I signed everything without reading it. I told Kevin about it. His voice on the other end of the line turned noticeably colder. "I see. Where are you now? Text me the address and don't go anywhere. Lock your door. I'm going to check on this immediately. I'll call you back as soon as I have something. And remember, don't trust anyone. Absolutely no one, including your mother-in-law." The call ended, but the anxiety in my soul only grew stronger. Insurance documents. Could it be? Was Andrew's scheme all about that? A monstrous, meticulously calculated plan began to form before my eyes, icy and terrifying. A few hours that felt like an eternity passed before my phone vibrated. Kevin's number. My hands were shaking so much I could only answer on the second try. "Hello? It's me." Kevin's voice was no longer sleepy, but heavy and grim. Did you find anything out?" I asked, my voice breaking. Kevin paused for a few seconds. I could hear him take a deep breath. "Clara, listen to me calmly. What I'm about to tell you will be a shock, but you have to be strong." My chest tightened, as if squeezed in a vice. "Tell me. I can handle it." "I had our specialists in the verification department look into it," he said, pausing again. 3 months ago, a life and accidental death insurance policy was indeed taken out in your name. The amount is very large." "How large?" I asked, barely breathing. Kevin hesitated, then spoke the fateful number. $10 million. And in the field for the sole beneficiary upon the insured event, there is one single name, Andrew. $10 million. The phone slipped from my hand and fell onto the worn mattress. A ringing started in my ears, and all the sounds around me faded away. The room swam before my eyes. All I could hear was the frantic beating of my own heart, so that was it. It was all about money. That romantic dinner, the sweet words about our future, about children, it was all just a carefully orchestrated performance so that I would sign my own death warrant. The love, the tender care, the vows of loyalty, all lies. He had been waiting patiently, like a predator in ambush, waiting for my heart to weaken enough for him to strike. That surgery wasn't meant to save me. It was meant to activate a $10 million insurance policy. My love, my life in his eyes, they were worth nothing more than a soulless number. Tears streamed down my face again, but this time not from fear, but from the pain and fury of shattered trust. While I was still drowning in a sea of despair, the phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law. I flinched. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear another lie, but the phone kept ringing insistently, as if it wouldn't stop until I picked up. Finally, I answered. "Hello? Clara, honey." Carol's voice on the other end was agitated and anxious. "My God, where are you? Why did you run away? Do you have any idea that Drew is going out of his mind? He was looking for you all night. He hasn't slept. He's a complete wreck." Yesterday, those words would have brought tears of gratitude to my eyes. Now, they just made me sick. I remained silent, not knowing how to respond to this flawlessly acted drama. "Not getting a response," she continued, her voice shifting to a reproachful sob. "I know you're nervous about the surgery, but you should have talked to us, not run away. You're sick. How could you be so reckless? If you're not thinking about yourself, at least think about your husband. You have no idea how much he does for you." Every word, every sound of her voice stabbed like needles into the bleeding wound in my heart. So, in their eyes, I was just a sick burden to my husband. All their love, all their care over the years, it was all part of the plan. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the storm of rage boiling inside me. "Carol, I'm sorry," I managed to say in a hoarse voice. "I just panicked a little. I'm at a friend's place. I'm safe, don't worry." "What friend? Who took you in at a time like this? You need to go back to the hospital immediately. Clara, listen to me. Go back to your husband. He's the best doctor. He'll cure you. Stop being so stubborn, honey. Cure me, or send me to the afterlife as quickly as possible." The falseness in her voice became unbearable. "Carol, I'm very tired. I need to rest. I'm hanging up." I quickly cut her off mid-sentence and disconnected, not giving her a chance to say another word. I threw the phone aside, feeling completely empty. This betrayal wasn't just from Andrew, but from his entire family. They were actors who had been playing out a long, 5-year performance. And I was the foolish protagonist, the fattened prey in their scheme. The tears dried up. In their place, a flame of hatred began to burn within me. I couldn't just die like this. I wouldn't let these monsters get what they wanted and feast on my remains. I had to live. Not just live, but make them pay for everything. But I knew I couldn't stand against an entire family of conspirators alone. I needed an ally, someone I could trust without reservation, and only one name came to mind: Chloe. Chloe had been my best friend since college. She was smart, insightful, and incredibly loyal. After graduation, she didn't take the easy path but started her own business. Now she owned a small PR agency, Bright Light PR. Despite her busy schedule, we always stayed in touch. She was the only one who had never liked Andrew from the very beginning. She once told me, "Your husband seems fake. Clara, be careful he doesn't wrap you around his little finger." I was offended at the time, thinking she was jealous of my happiness. Now I realized what a fool I'd been. With shaking hands, I dialed Chloe's number. After 2 rings, she answered, her voice sleepy but still sharp. "Hello? What's up so early? Something happen? Chloe?" I had only managed to say her name before my throat closed up. "Save me." Hearing my sobs, Chloe instantly became serious. "Where are you? What happened? Did that bastard do something to you? Can you come get me?" "I'll text you the address. Just don't tell anyone, especially not Andrew," I whimpered. "Okay, stay put. I'll be there in 30 minutes, Chloe replied curtly, not asking a single extra question. As promised, she knocked on my door in less than 20 minutes. I peeked through the peephole, made sure it was her, and only then opened it. She stepped inside, saw my pathetic state, and immediately threw her arms around me. "Oh my God! What happened to you? Did he hit you?" In my best friend's embrace, everything I had been holding back burst out. I sobbed uncontrollably, telling her everything. The nurse's warning, the $10 million insurance policy, the fake and threatening phone calls. The longer Chloe listened, the more her expression changed from surprise to shock, and then to unrestrained fury. When I finished, she was silent for a long time before hissing through her teeth, "Scum. Absolute monsters." She didn't tell me to calm down or offer empty words of comfort. She just sat beside me, squeezing my hand tightly. "All right, you've cried it out. Now is not the time for weakness. You're right. You can't die. You have to live. Live out of spite, to make that bastard pay for everything." Chloe's strength and determination flowed into me like a revitalizing stream. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt I was no longer alone. But what do I do now? "I'm so scared, Chloe. What's there to be afraid of?" "I'm here," Chloe said firmly. "First, you need to be completely safe. You can't stay here. We need to move you immediately. Second, we need proof. Your word isn't enough to accuse them. Think back. Was there anything else suspicious about Andrew's behavior? Did he have any questionable connections? We'll start there." Chloe's clear and logical analysis gradually cleared my clouded mind. She was right. I couldn't just hide. Following Chloe's plan, we moved that very morning to a small, inconspicuous studio apartment in Alston that she had quickly rented. It was much safer than that rundown motel. Once settled, we began to work on our next steps. "Now we need eyes and ears in the hospital," Chloe said, crossing her arms like a general planning a strategy. "Do you know anyone there you can trust? Someone who can watch things without being noticed?" I thought long and hard. The doctors and nurses in Andrew's department were out of the question. Most of them were intimidated by him and on good terms with him. Then a kind face came to mind. "Yes, there's Maria. She works as a cleaner in our hospital wing," I said. Maria was a middle-aged woman, a widow raising 2 kids on her own. She was very quiet and kind. About a year ago, her oldest son needed an emergency appendectomy, but she didn't have the money for it. I happened to find out and secretly paid all the hospital bills. Maria was so grateful that she showered me with thanks every time we met. I was sure she wouldn't refuse to help me. I immediately called Maria from a disposable SIM card Chloe had prepared. I didn't dare tell her the whole truth, just that my husband and I were having a small conflict, that I had temporarily left home, and I wanted to ask her to keep an eye on him at the hospital to see if he was acting strangely or if anyone new was around him. Hearing the anxiety in my voice, Maria didn't hesitate for a second. "Clara, don't you worry. I owe you my life for what you did for us back then. Of course, I'll watch him. If I see anything, I'll text you right away." Her willingness to help touched me to the core. Even in the darkest of times, there are good people who warm your heart. I didn't have to wait long. Just 2 days later, I received a message from Maria. Its contents sent Chloe and me into shock. "Clara, I've been watching for the past couple of days. Dr. Andrew has been acting strange lately, snapping at the nurses. But he and Dr. Isaac from anesthesiology are inseparable. They weren't that close before. But now they're going to the cafe behind the hospital almost every day, sitting and whispering about something. And one more thing, I overheard the young nurses talking. They said Isaac recently paid off a huge gambling debt, something around $25,000. And then, out of nowhere, he showed up in a brand new car. I reread the message over and over, and every word formed a terrifying picture. Isaac, the anesthesiologist, a key figure in any surgery. A huge gambling debt, a new car, and a sudden, suspicious closeness with Andrew. It couldn't all be a coincidence. The conspiracy wasn't limited to Andrew alone. He had an accomplice, and that accomplice was most likely Isaac. The evidence pointing to Isaac made the picture of Andrew's plot clearer, but at the same time, we realized our situation was becoming even more dangerous. Andrew wasn't a lone wolf. He had a partner, and it seemed his patience was wearing thin with each passing day. As we suspected, Andrew moved on to more decisive actions. He was no longer just calling me. He had launched a full-scale search campaign, playing the role of the heartbroken, devoted husband looking for his sick wife who had run away from home. He called all our mutual friends, telling them about my illness, and how I was supposedly mentally unstable. He even showed up at the company where I used to work, questioning my former colleagues and stirring up a wave of sympathy and gossip. The culmination of this performance was a long post Andrew published on his Facebook page. He posted our wedding photo and wrote a tear-jerking, sentimental text. "My love, where are you? You know how worried we all are for you. Your illness cannot wait. Be angry with me all you want, but please, come home. Let me take care of you. I'm begging anyone who has seen my wife to please contact me." The post instantly garnered thousands of reactions. People in the comments praised him left and right, the perfect husband, a hero from a romance novel, and they criticized me, a heartless, selfish wife who didn't appreciate her happiness. Sitting in our tiny apartment reading those comments, I could only laugh bitterly. How easily people were fooled by a beautiful rapper. They had no idea that behind the mask of a caring husband was a monster, trying every way possible to send me to my grave. "What an actor," Chloe said with undisguised contempt, reading the post. "He's creating public pressure, painting you as mentally ill, so that if something happens to you, everyone will think you did it to yourself." Chloe was right. Andrew didn't just want to find me, he was clearing the path for his plan. He wanted the whole world to believe in my instability. If I died on the operating table, it would be a regrettable medical error. If I disappeared, I had wandered off in a state of confusion. The feeling of being hunted, of being surrounded, was suffocating. The net was closing in. Chloe and I were like tightrope walkers, one wrong move, and we would fall into the abyss. The days spent in fear and anxiety were exhausting me to my limits. Nightmares plagued me every night. I dreamed of Andrew with his usual affectionate smile, but in his hand he held a gleaming scalpel, slowly approaching me. I would jolt awake in a cold sweat, my heart pounding like a drum. Chloe was always there, supporting and encouraging me. "You have to hold on, Clara," she would say, handing me a glass of warm water. "If you break now, no one will be able to help you." I knew that, but the pain of betrayal was too immense. It gnawed at my soul, hour by hour, day by day. I had lost not only my husband, I had lost faith in love, in life itself. In my moments of deepest weakness, my thoughts kept returning to that fateful day I signed the insurance contract. It was an autumn evening. The Boston air was already chilling my cheeks. Andrew came home earlier than usual, holding a bouquet of red roses, my favorite. He said it was our anniversary and he wanted to cook a romantic dinner himself. By the flickering candlelight, he poured me a glass of wine and looked at me with such tenderness. "Honey," he said in his deep, velvety voice, "thank you for being by my side, for giving me a family. I know things are tough with your health, and I worry all the time. I've been thinking a lot, and I've prepared this a gift and a guarantee for our future, and the future of our children." He then brought out that same folder of documents. He explained it was a profitable investment package, a savings plan, and health protection. At that moment, I only heard two words: future and children. I was so happy I lost all ability to think clearly. Without a shred of doubt, I signed every page, not even reading them. I still remember it so vividly. When I put down the last signature, Andrew hugged me tightly, kissed my hair, and whispered, "Thank you, my love. Now I can rest easy." Looking back now, I realize his smile at that moment, his embrace, it was all chillingly grotesque. He wasn't happy about our future. He was celebrating because his plan had moved one step forward. He used my love and blind trust to turn me into a tool for his enrichment. My sweetest memory had become my most painful and humiliating one. Every time it surfaced, it felt like 1,000 needles piercing my heart, and I couldn't breathe. After several days of gathering information and trying to regain my emotional strength, Chloe decided it was time to seek legal help. "We can't handle them on our own," she said. "We need someone who understands the law." Chloe introduced me to Eleanor Vance, a well-known civil litigation attorney and a friend of her older sister. Her office was in a large building downtown. To get there, we had to disguise ourselves again: hats, sunglasses, medical masks, the whole 9 yards. Eleanor was in her early 40s, petite in appearance but with an incredibly sharp and perceptive gaze. As she listened to my story from beginning to end, she silently jotted down notes in a legal pad, only nodding occasionally. When I finished, she looked at me not with pity, but with genuine understanding and empathy. "I understand," she said calmly but firmly. "The situation is indeed very serious. But to bring this all to light and, most importantly, to ensure your safety, we must proceed step by step, without rushing." She flipped through her notes and began to analyze the situation. First, the insurance contract. It's real. Your signature is on it, which means it's legally valid. We won't be able to annul it right away. Second, regarding your husband's plot, the nurse's warning and the rumors from the cleaner are very weak evidence. A court won't accept them. The court needs concrete things: an audio recording, photographs, or the testimony of a direct witness. Listening to Eleanor's analysis, the faint hope that had just begun to stir within me started to fade again. It turned out everything was far from simple. "Then what should we do?" I asked, my voice laced with anxiety. Eleanor looked at me with unshakable confidence. "First and foremost, we ensure your complete safety. Your husband is searching for you. You must not be found. Second, we need to gather more evidence. Try to remember, besides Isaac, did your husband have any other suspicious connections? Another woman, perhaps? Is his motive only the $10 million from the insurance? Or is there something else?" Her question struck me. Another woman. It had never crossed my mind. Andrew had always seemed like a model of fidelity. A husband who doted on his wife. But for a man capable of planning his own wife's murder, an affair was probably a trivial matter. My head spun with new suspicions. While Chloe and I were trying to find more leads, Andrew and his family continued their performance. This time, they hit me where it hurt the most: my relatives. My parents were gone, but I had my mother's sisters and other family living in upstate New York. We didn't talk often, but they were simple, sincere people who had always been warm to me. Andrew, of course, knew this perfectly well. One afternoon, my Aunt Vera called. Her voice sounded panicked. "Clara, honey, what's wrong with you? Why did you leave home? Andrew just drove all the way here from Boston. He says you have a serious heart condition and you're suffering from depression, that you're having dark thoughts. He's a wreck over you, lost weight, can't eat, can't sleep. Where are you? Come back immediately. Stop torturing your husband." My ears started ringing. They had reached my family. What had they told them? Depression, dark thoughts. They were turning me into a crazy person in everyone's eyes. My aunt didn't stop there. Her voice became utterly pitiful. "And your mother-in-law came too. She was crying non-stop. Said it was her fault, that she hadn't watched over you properly. It was just heartbreaking to see them. Listen, honey, if something's wrong, you two should sort it out behind closed doors. Why air your dirty laundry for everyone to see?" I hung up, my arms and legs numb. Unbelievable. They had put on a flawless performance, and my relatives had believed every word. They didn't just slander me, they cut off all my escape routes, depriving me of any support from my family. If I were to claim now that Andrew wanted to kill me, no one would believe me. They would all think I was delusional because of my illness, that I was slandering a wonderful husband. Bastards! Chloe slammed her fist on the table in fury. They've outplayed us. They're completely isolating you, turning you into a liar in everyone's eyes. I sat in silence, tears streaming down my cheeks. The pain of betrayal had now multiplied. Not just my husband, but his whole family. And now, even my own blood had turned away, believing strangers. I felt as if the whole world had turned against me. An immense loneliness and powerlessness consumed me completely. The despair after my aunt's call completely crushed me. I sat on the bed in our tiny apartment, hugging my knees, and stared out the window at the unfamiliar city. The feeling that the entire world had turned its back on me, that the people closest to me didn't understand, caused a pain sharper than any illness. I cried until the tears ran out. Chloe sat silently beside me, handing me tissues. She said nothing, just waited until I had cried it all out. When I had composed myself a little, she finally spoke, her voice resolute and firm. "Done crying? Good. Now act. The more they back us into a corner, the less we can afford to sit around and do nothing." But what can we do?" I said, my voice breaking. "There's no proof. My family doesn't believe me. I really don't know what to do anymore." "Who said there's no proof?" Chloe looked me straight in the eye. "That insurance contract. That's it. The beginning of everything. The main piece of physical evidence. We have to get it. Words can be disputed, but black and white on paper can't." The thought made me shiver. "But it's at home, in Andrew's safe. How are we supposed to get it? It's dangerous to go back there. Chloe, what if we get caught? And sitting here waiting to die isn't dangerous?" Chloe's voice became harsh. "Clara, I know you're scared, but now is not the time for fear. You have to turn your fear into determination. We'll make a detailed plan. Andrew is at work all day. Only your mother-in-law is home, right? And greedy old women usually make mistakes." Chloe's firm gaze gave me courage. She was right. I couldn't sit here forever. I had to act, even if the chance was vanishingly small. That entire evening, we developed a daring plan. Chloe, with her PR experience, came up with a flawless scenario. She would pose as an employee of a luxury gift company, arriving to deliver a special prize to Dr. Andrew, and in doing so, lure Carol out of the apartment and distract her. The next day, the plan was set in motion. Chloe wore an elegant business suit and held a large box, beautifully wrapped in shiny paper and tied with a bow. I put on a wig, sunglasses, and baggy clothes to make myself unrecognizable. We took a taxi and drove to the house. I got out first and hid around the corner, while Chloe confidently buzzed the intercom. Watching her straight, composed back, I felt a mix of admiration and chilling fear. From my hiding spot, I heard the doorbell ring. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would leap out of my chest. After a moment, the heavy door creaked open, and Carol peered out, giving Chloe a suspicious look. "Can I help you?" she asked curtly. Chloe broke into a wide, professional smile that radiated charm. "Good afternoon. I represent the Golden Gift Company. We have a special appreciation program for outstanding physicians, and Dr. Andrew has won the grand prize in our promotion." Upon hearing the words grand prize, Carol's eyes lit up. Her scowl immediately smoothed over. "A grand prize? And what's the gift?" "It's a premium wellness set, imported from Germany. However, our company has a specific procedure. I need to take a photo of the recipient with the gift and have you sign the delivery confirmation. May I come in for just a minute?" Chloe cooed. Greed won out over caution. Carol opened the door wide without the slightest hesitation. "Of course, come in." That was my signal. I took a deep breath and quickly slipped inside through the open door. Hugging the wall, I went down a side hallway and up to the second floor, to Andrew's office. Every step on the familiar stairs was a struggle. This was my home, yet I was forced to sneak through it like a thief. Andrew's office was unchanged. The black safe stood in the corner, just as it always had. With trembling fingers, I entered the code. My birthday. A cruel irony. The safe door swung open, but it was completely empty inside. No documents, just a couple of savings bonds and some old jewelry. My head spun. He had already moved everything. He was more cautious and suspicious than I had thought. He hadn't left a single trace. From downstairs, I could hear the voices of Chloe and Carol. I knew I was almost out of time. I quickly closed the safe, wiped away any prints, and hurried out of the office. I slipped out of the house, crushed by disappointment and fear. The plan had failed. I quickly called Chloe. My voice trembled. "Chloe, it's empty." He took everything. On the other end, Chloe's voice was also tense. I figured, "You're out? Grab a cab and leave. Quickly. The old lady is getting suspicious. Go." I hung up and rushed away from the courtyard. Turning back, I saw Carol on the second-floor balcony. She was standing there, squinting, watching me go. It looked like she suspected something. The failure with the safe left us at a dead end. My enemy was not only cruel but also incredibly prudent. He had calculated every step, leaving no openings. For the next few days, the atmosphere in the small apartment was unbearably heavy. I barely ate or slept. My nerves were stretched to the breaking point. "This won't work," Chloe said, breaking the silence. "We can't just sit here and wait to be killed. One plan didn't work, so we'll try another. If we can't hit Andrew directly, we'll hit the weakest link in his chain." "You mean Isaac?" I looked up at her. "Exactly," Chloe nodded, a spark of determination in her eyes. "A guy like that, a gambling addict up to his ears in debt, doesn't have Andrew's caution or composure. He must have left a trail. I'll have some people dig into his past." No sooner said than done. Chloe immediately put her connections to work. She wasn't a police officer or a private investigator, but in the media world, getting information on someone wasn't that difficult. She asked a journalist friend, who specialized in investigations, to find out everything about Isaac's background and recent contacts. The results came back in just 3 days, and they were far more detailed than what Maria had reported. Chloe's friend sent a full report. Isaac Feldman, 35, divorced. Known at the hospital as an avid online gambler. About 2 months ago, he lost around $25,000, and his loan sharks were threatening to kill him. But miraculously, just a week later, he paid off the entire debt. That's precisely when his regular meetings with Andrew began. A month ago, he financed a car worth about $50,000, something his doctor's salary could never support. "There it is," Chloe said, tapping the screen of her tablet. "It all fits. The moment Isaac paid off his debts coincides with when you signed the insurance contract. Andrew probably paid him in advance to get him on board. The price of your life was $25,000 and a car." Every word Chloe said was like a hammer blow to my chest. I was overcome with disgust. Disgust that a human life could be valued so cheaply. Disgust that a doctor who took an oath to save people could sell his conscience for money. "Now we have a motive and a connection," Chloe continued. "This is a major step forward. We've found his accomplice and his weak spot. Now we just need to prove that Andrew gave Isaac the money, and we can turn this whole game around." Meanwhile, Andrew seemed to be growing more impatient. He stopped posting pitiful messages on social media and instead, as I learned, went to the police to file a missing person report for me. This move deeply alarmed us. He wanted to legitimize my absence, involve the police to increase the pressure, and strip me of my last hiding place. We knew the apartment was no longer safe. We had to move, but before that, our food supplies had run out. "I'll go," Chloe said. "It's too dangerous for you outside." "No," I objected. "You're already doing so much for me. I can't let you risk it alone. It'll be safer if we go together." In the end, Chloe agreed. We once again disguised ourselves thoroughly, hats, masks, and chose a small grocery store in a different neighborhood where the chance of running into someone we knew was minimal. It seemed like everything would go smoothly, but fate had other plans. As we stood at the checkout, a painfully familiar voice sounded behind us. "That's weird," Andrew said his wife and her friend went on vacation. "But she's right here." My heart stopped. I didn't dare turn around, but in the reflection on the glass display, I saw a familiar face. It was David, a colleague of Andrew's from the hospital, someone he was friendly with. He was talking on the phone and staring straight at me with surprise. He must have recognized me by my build or my clothes. "We're done for," Chloe whispered, squeezing my hand. "Drop everything and run." We didn't hesitate for a second. I left the groceries on the conveyor belt, and Chloe and I bolted from the store as if scalded. I didn't look back, only heard David's voice behind me. "Clara, is that you? Clara?" We ran out onto the street at full speed, hailed the first cab we saw, and jumped in. Only when the car pulled away did I allow myself to look back. David was still standing at the entrance to the store, phone in hand, watching our taxi drive away in confusion. "That's it, Chloe, we're finished," I said, my voice trembling with terror. "He's definitely going to call Andrew. They know our neighborhood." Chloe was silent. Her face had also turned as white as a sheet. Our fragile security had shattered. The predator had caught our scent. We were almost out of time. Panic and a paralyzing fear washed over me again. The taxi sped along in silence, but a storm raged in my head. Chloe and I didn't say a word, just held each other's hands tightly. Her palm was also icy and damp with sweat. We'd been found. The image of David at the store entrance with his phone haunted me. Andrew surely knew which neighborhood we were in by now. He would search every alley, every hotel. We had nowhere left to go. "We'll go to my place for now." Chloe finally broke the oppressive silence. "It's a little safer there. We'll figure it out from there." I just nodded. My mind was a blank, filled with the feeling of a cornered animal with no escape route. When we arrived at Chloe's apartment on the north side, the first thing she did was draw all the curtains. The room was plunged into dim electric light, even though it was still day outside. How long would this phantom safety last? I collapsed onto the sofa, my whole body shaking. All our plans, all our efforts, had come to nothing. "Clara, listen to me," Chloe said, sitting down beside me, her voice serious. "This is not the time to panic. The more you fear, the more mistakes you'll make. Andrew knows we were in that area, but finding a specific address in a huge city isn't easy. We still have some time." Even as she said it, I knew. We were in a race against death. I buried my head in my hands. Helplessness and despair consumed me. If only a miracle would happen, if only someone would offer me a hand. And then, in that darkest moment, the disposable phone in my hand suddenly vibrated. An unknown number on the screen. My heart sank. Who was this? Had Andrew's people traced my number? I looked at Chloe, terror in my eyes. "Answer it," Chloe said firmly. "Put it on speaker." I took a deep breath and, with a trembling hand, pressed the answer button. A few seconds of silence, just quiet breathing on the other end. Then, a timid, quiet female voice spoke, a voice both unfamiliar and yet chillingly familiar. "Hello? Is this Clara?" I froze. That voice, it was the same one that had whispered in my ear in the hospital room that night. The voice of the nurse who had saved my life. Is that you?" I stammered, unable to believe my ears. "The nurse from the hospital?" "Yes, it's me. My name is Anna." The young woman's voice on the other end sounded as if a heavy weight had been lifted. "I'm sorry to call so unexpectedly. I know you're in danger, and I think I have something that might help you." A ray of light. In the most desolate, desperate moment, a true ray of light appeared, thin, fragile, but bright enough to ignite hope within me. "Where are you? Are you safe?" That was the first thing I could manage to say. A genuine concern for this young woman welled up inside me. She had risked everything for me. I couldn't let anything happen to her. "Yes, I'm safe. I've already quit my job at the hospital, and I'm planning to go home." Anna's voice remained quiet and gentle. "But before I leave, I need to see you. Can we meet somewhere private? I have something very important I want to give you in person." We arranged to meet Anna at a small cafe called the Quiet Harbor, hidden in a secluded alley far from Chloe's place. Chloe and I once again disguised ourselves thoroughly. When we arrived, Anna was already sitting in a far corner. A young woman in a simple jacket, a baseball cap pulled down low over her eyes. She looked noticeably thinner and paler than when we first met. Seeing me, Anna stood up abruptly. Fear flickered in her eyes, but it was overshadowed by resolve. Throughout our conversation, she nervously wrung her hands. I could see how tense she was. "Thank you," I said with sincere gratitude. "Thank you for saving my life. I can never repay you." Anna shook her head quietly, staring at the cold cup of tea in front of her. "Don't say that. I just did what I had to do." She hesitated, then continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Actually, I also did it because of my mother." She told me that her mother had also once been a patient. Her illness wasn't fatal, but due to the negligence and misdiagnosis of a prominent doctor, her condition deteriorated rapidly, and she died. The family tried to seek justice but ultimately lost. The doctor's connections and influence were too powerful. "I will never forget that pain, that powerlessness," Anna said, her eyes turning red. "So when I accidentally overheard what Dr. Andrew was planning, I couldn't just walk away. I hate those who wear a white coat and swear to save lives, but use their knowledge to kill. In your situation, I saw my mother, and I told myself, this time, I will not let a tragedy happen again. Listening to Anna, I felt something tighten in my chest. Her kindness wasn't random. It was born from pain, from the deep empathy of a daughter who had lost her mother to someone else's evil. I reached across the table and took her icy hands in mine. I understand you, Anna. I'm sorry for bringing up your painful memories. Anna looked up at me and gave a faint smile, though tears still glistened in her eyes. It's okay. The most important thing now is to help you. I believe my mom, up there, would approve of what I'm doing. What a cruel irony. Two strangers, united by the same pain, both betrayed by people in white coats, had met by chance and become allies in a fight for life and death. Gathering her courage, Anna took a small black USB flash drive from her bag and placed it on the table. She looked at the tiny object with a complex expression. "This is what I wanted to give you," she said quietly. "What is it?" Chloe and I stared at the flash drive simultaneously. Anna took a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal a secret that could change everything. "It's an audio recording, a recording of a conversation between Dr. Andrew and Dr. Isaac." My heart leaped. "A recording. How did you get it?" Anna explained. That day, she had been sent to urgently deliver a folder of patient charts to Andrew's office. As she approached the door, she heard Andrew and Isaac talking inside. Their tone was clearly suspicious. Anna sensed something was wrong. Obeying her instincts, she turned on the voice recorder on her phone, then knocked and entered. "I pretended I'd left my phone on the desk and asked for permission to step out for a minute so they would continue their conversation," Anna recounted, her voice still trembling at the memory. "I wasn't wrong. I stood outside the door while my phone recorded everything. They didn't suspect a thing." What are they saying on it?" Chloe asked impatiently. "They're discussing the plan for your surgery." Anna looked me straight in the eye, her voice becoming clear and hard. Isaac was supposed to administer a slightly higher dose of anesthesia, enough to induce anaphylactic shock. After that, Andrew, as the lead surgeon, would deliberately make several technical errors so that your heart would stop. It would all look like a tragic medical complication. The patient's body couldn't handle it. No one would ever suspect anything. I sat frozen. Even though I already knew about the plot, hearing the entire monstrous scheme laid out in such detail by someone else sent a chill to my very bones. "That's not all," Anna continued. "They also discussed splitting the insurance money, the $10 million. After a successful outcome, Andrew promised to give Isaac $1 million as payment for his work and his silence. He said, 'For that price, it's the deal of a century for one human life.'" My God, Chloe couldn't hold back, slapping her hand on the table. "Monsters! With trembling hands, I picked up the flash drive. This tiny object now held the weight of justice. It wasn't just proof of a conspiracy to commit murder. It was a ruthless indictment of the monstrous violation of medical ethics by two men society was accustomed to respecting and honoring. The previous shivers of fear were replaced by tremors of fury, of a hope for retribution that burned brighter and brighter. Finally, I had a weapon in my hands. "Anna, I have no words to express my gratitude," I said, barely holding back tears. I looked at this young woman, my heart overflowing with boundless appreciation. If not for her courage and kindness, I might not be alive today. I took a bank card from my purse, onto which I had transferred some of my funds beforehand, and held it out to Anna. "There's $50,000 on here. I know it's nothing compared to my life, but it's all I can offer right now. Please, take it. Go home, start a new life. Don't stay in this city." Anna looked at the card, then at me, genuine surprise in her eyes. She quickly shook her head and pushed the card back. "No, I can't accept this. I didn't help you for money. But you lost your job because of me. You risked so much," I insisted. "You need to live a normal life too. Please, take it." "No," Anna refused resolutely. Her voice was quiet, but it held an unshakable conviction. I already told you, I did this for my mother and for my own conscience. If I take your money, my actions will lose all meaning." She looked me straight in the eye, her gaze pure and sincere. "Clara, if you really want to thank me, then promise me one thing. Anything. I'll do anything. When this is all over, when those men are punished, you have to live well," Anna said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You have to be healthy and happy. Live for yourself, and for my mother too. That will be the best thanks I could ever ask for. Seeing you safe is the greatest gift for me." Hearing those words, I couldn't hold back my tears. In a world full of lies, deceit, and monstrous conspiracies, such bright and noble souls still existed. This young woman's kindness was like a cool stream, washing over the bleeding wounds in my heart and restoring my faith that good still exists in the world. I didn't insist anymore. I nodded and made a solemn promise. "Okay, I promise you. I will definitely live well." Before she left, Anna warned me one last time to be extremely careful, then quickly disappeared into the crowd of passers-by. I remained seated, clutching the flash drive tightly. The promise I made to Anna had become an oath. This was a battle not just for my life, not just for revenge, but for the defense of kindness, for justice for people like Anna and her mother. Back at Chloe's apartment, the three of us, Chloe, Eleanor, and I, sat around a small table. The flash drive Anna had given me was plugged into a laptop, lying there silently, like a ticking time bomb. Eleanor had rushed over as soon as Chloe called her face genuinely alarmed. "Let's listen together," Eleanor said calmly, and pressed play. The quiet room filled with the chilling, painfully familiar voices. Andrew's voice, still velvety and deep, but every word he spoke was cold as ice. And Isaac's voice, greedy and calculating. They discussed the anesthesia dosage, the method for creating a perfect medical complication, the division of the $10 million, the price of my life. I sat there, gripping Chloe's hand, forcing myself to breathe evenly. I had prepared for this, but to hear your own husband calmly discussing your death with your own ears still felt like a knife twisting in your heart. This was no longer speculation, no longer a second-hand account. It was the naked, ruthless truth. Chloe squeezed my hand, her eyes red with fury. Only Eleanor maintained her professional composure, though I noticed her fingers, which had been tapping the table, had frozen. When the recording ended, silence fell upon the room. A silence that was more terrifying than the words we had just heard. More than enough, Eleanor was the first to speak. "This recording, along with the insurance contract and the evidence of your husband's connection to Isaac, falls squarely under the statutes for attempted murder and fraud. We can go to the police right now." I want him to bow his own head and confess," I said in a hoarse voice. "I want to see his true face exposed in front of everyone." Eleanor looked at me for a long moment. A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes, but then she nodded. "I understand. Sometimes the justice of the law isn't enough for a wounded soul. All right. We'll take a riskier, but more effective approach. I will contact a reliable person in the Criminal Investigation Division so they can prepare a tactical team. In the meantime, we will arrange a confrontation. We need to provoke him, make him confess himself, or lose control. That will be the final, irrefutable piece of evidence." The plan was worked out in meticulous detail. I was to call Andrew and arrange a meeting right in his office at the hospital. I would pretend that I had thought things over and wanted to come back to talk things out. It was the place where he felt most confident, where he believed he was in charge, which meant it was precisely there that he was most likely to slip up. The net was cast. All that was left was for the beast to walk into the trap itself. The next day, I returned to the hospital. Just a few weeks ago, this place had been my hope for life. Now, it felt like a tiger's den that I was willingly entering. Chloe and Eleanor came with me but could only wait in a cafe across the street. From here on, it was just me, face to face with Andrew. I wore simple clothes and deliberately applied my makeup to look pale and exhausted. Walking down the familiar hallways, I breathed in that same antiseptic smell, but today it made me nauseous. Several familiar nurses and doctors looked surprised to see me, then gave me looks of pity. They had surely all bought the story of the depressed wife that Andrew had so carefully crafted. I stopped in front of his office door. The shiny brass plaque read, "Head of Cardiothoracic Surgery." I took a deep breath, feeling my heart pound wildly. I took out my phone and dialed his number. "Where are you?" I asked in a weak, trembling voice, just as we had rehearsed. "I'm standing in front of your office. I want to see you." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Andrew was clearly stunned. Then he replied, his voice filled with joy and triumph. "Really? You're back? That's wonderful. Stay right there. I'm coming down now. Don't go anywhere." I hung up and leaned my back against the cold wall. I knew what he was thinking. His prey had finally returned on its own. He was sure I had nowhere left to run and had come to beg for forgiveness. A few minutes later, I saw Andrew hurrying from the stairwell. The same white coat, the same soft, concerned expression on his face. "Honey," he said, quickly approaching and reaching for my hand. "You've finally come to your senses. You have no idea how worried I was about you." I took a step back, avoiding his touch. "Let's go inside and talk. I don't want to stand out here." Andrew froze for a moment at my gesture, but immediately forced a smile. Of course. Come in. I'm ready to listen to anything you have to say." He opened the door and gallantly motioned me inside. The office was just as I remembered, it clean, respectable. Our wedding photo was still on his desk. I looked at my happy smile in that picture, and a bitterness that took my breath away rose in my chest. "Sit down," Andrew said in a honeyed voice. "You've lost so much weight. You must have suffered these past few days. Why did you run away, you silly girl?" I didn't sit. I just stood in the middle of the room, looking him straight in the eyes. The same eyes I was once madly in love with. The same eyes that had once seemed like the entire sky to me. "Andrew, stop acting. I'm tired," I said. The smile on his face froze instantly. He looked at me with suspicion. "What do you mean? What acting?" At that exact moment, the office door opened again. Chloe and Eleanor walked in. Andrew turned to stone. His expression changed instantly from surprise to anger. "Chloe, what is this? Why are strangers here? Clara, what's going on?" "Hello, Andrew." Eleanor spoke calmly and professionally. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm Clara's attorney. We're here to clarify a few circumstances." "Clarify? What do you need to clarify between me and my wife?" Andrew snapped. There was no trace of his former gentleness. Eleanor silently placed a folder of documents on his desk. "Andrew, could you please explain this life insurance policy for $10 million? It was signed just 3 months ago, and the sole beneficiary is you." Andrew's face paled for a moment, but he quickly composed himself. "So what? I insured my wife's life. What's wrong with that? It's an expression of love, of caring for her." "Love?" Chloe sneered, her smile pure mockery. "Your kind of love, the kind that involves secret meetings with Isaac from anesthesiology and paying off his $25,000 gambling debt." At the mention of Isaac's name, Andrew became truly frightened. He started to stammer. What are you talking about? I don't understand." "You don't understand. Or you're pretending not to." Eleanor's voice became hard. "Then perhaps you should listen to this. It might help you remember." She took out her phone and pressed play. The silence of the office was shattered by the familiar voices, Andrew's voice and Isaac's voice. Every word about the plan to murder me, about how to create a flawless medical complication, about splitting the $10 million, sounded clear and merciless. The smile on Andrew's face finally crumbled. His face went from pale to a deathly white, drained of all blood. His eyes widened. He stared at the phone as if he couldn't believe his own ears. The perfect mask he had worn for all these years finally cracked and began to fall apart. "It's a fake! It's all fake!" he suddenly screamed like a wounded animal. He lunged at Eleanor, trying to snatch the phone from her hands. "You fabricated it all. You framed me." But Chloe was faster. She grabbed the phone and stepped back. "Framed you?" she said with icy contempt. "Andrew, you still have the nerve to say that word? The one who framed his wife for death was you, and only you." Then Andrew turned to me abruptly. There was no trace of the former tenderness in his eyes, only hatred and malice. It was you. It was all you. You knew from the beginning. That little nurse, Anna, you put her up to it, didn't you? Yes. In his panic, he had given himself away. He had inadvertently confirmed that the conversation had indeed taken place and acknowledged Anna's role in it. Eleanor gave me a barely perceptible nod. We had everything we needed. At that same moment, the office door burst open, and a group of plainclothes detectives rushed in. An officer with a stern face led the way, holding up his badge and announcing loudly, "Andrew Collins, you are under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder and insurance fraud. You'll come with us for questioning." Seeing the police, Andrew completely broke. He collapsed to the floor, muttering, "No, it wasn't me. I'm innocent." As they led him away in handcuffs, the entire hospital corridor was already buzzing. Doctors, nurses, patients, everyone had come out to watch. They stared at him, at the head of the department they had always respected, and their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Whispers and gossip rustled through the crowd. His reputation, his career, everything he had so carefully built on lies crumbled in a single morning. I stood and watched him go in silence until his silhouette disappeared around a corner. All my strength seemed to drain out of me at once. I swayed, and if Chloe hadn't caught me, I would have fallen. The days following Andrew's arrest were long and difficult. The criminal was caught, but the aftershocks of the earthquake he had caused still echoed within me. I had to constantly work with the police and lawyers, giving testimony, recounting the events over and over again. Every time I repeated the story, the wounds on my heart began to bleed anew. The investigation was thorough and meticulous. In addition to the audio recording, investigators reviewed Andrew's bank statements, discovering large transfers to Isaac's accounts. They recovered text messages that Andrew thought he had long deleted but that experts managed to retrieve. Each new piece of evidence added another brick to the wall of the prosecution's case, making it impenetrable. Isaac was arrested the same day, just a few hours after Andrew. He had tried to flee, dropping everything to buy a bus ticket to New York, but he was apprehended at the station. During interrogation, he broke almost instantly, confessing everything in minute detail, hoping for a lenient sentence. His testimony fully corroborated and expanded upon what was on the recording. A few days later, Eleanor came to me at Chloe's apartment. She brought a thick folder of documents, her face a mixture of anger and fatigue. She said that Andrew had finally confessed as well. Faced with the irrefutable audio recording, witness testimony, and all the other evidence, he realized there was no way out. He told them everything, Eleanor said, her voice heavy. No evasions, no denials. He must have understood that the more stubbornly he resisted, the harsher the sentence would be. According to her, Andrew admitted to the entire plan. He and Isaac had orchestrated everything together, but the motive behind it all disgusted me even more than the crime itself. It wasn't because of an urgent debt or some external pressure. He did it simply out of greed and selfishness. Andrew revealed that about a year ago, he had lost a huge amount of money in stock market investments. The luxurious life, the status of a brilliant department head, it was all on the verge of collapse. He couldn't accept the idea of failure, didn't want to give up the lifestyle he was accustomed to. And so, he looked at me. A sick wife who trusted him blindly, and a large inheritance left by my parents. In his eyes, I was no longer a wife, but a perfect financial solution. The $10 million insurance policy became his trump card, the bomb with which he intended to rebuild his career and continue living lavishly. He had calculated everything down to the smallest detail, from bribing the debt-ridden Isaac to planning a flawless medical complication that would leave no trace. Listening to the summary of his confession, I felt only a cold emptiness. There wasn't a shred of remorse in his words, only cold calculation. He had never loved me. All the tenderness of the past years was just a tool, a long-term investment in his plan. To him, I was not a wife but an ATM, nothing more, nothing less. It was a stark and shameful truth, but it was the one that finally freed me from the illusions of the love I once cherished. While awaiting the trial, I tried to bring my life back to some semblance of normality. Chloe was by my side every day, helping me recover both physically and emotionally. We took long walks along the Boston waterfront, and the cool Atlantic breeze seemed to blow the dark thoughts from my mind. Kevin didn't abandon me either. He drove down from his city every weekend, bringing homemade food from his wife and sitting with me for hours, telling funny stories from our childhood, trying to make me smile, even for a moment. Gradually, I began to learn to trust people again. Not everyone, and not right away, but step by step, I realized that the world wasn't entirely made up of traitors and liars. There was Chloe, there was Kevin, there was Anna, there was Maria, there was Eleanor. These people became my true family, a family not of blood, but of spirit. One of the most difficult trials while waiting for the court date was a visit from Carol. One evening, the doorbell at Chloe's apartment rang, and my mother-in-law was standing on the doorstep. She looked 10 years older, her face gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, she suddenly fell to her knees right there on the threshold and began to sob. "Clara, forgive me. Forgive this stupid old woman. I didn't know. I swear. I knew nothing about what he was planning. He's my son. I believed him, just like you did." I stood there looking at this woman who, not so long ago, had been berating me over the phone for being ungrateful and heartless. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, pity, contempt, it was all mixed together. Chloe wanted to slam the door, but I stopped her. I looked silently at the weeping Carol, trying to discern if her tears were genuine or just another act in the performance I had grown so accustomed to. "Get up," I finally said in a level voice. "Get off the floor." She rose, sobbing, and I saw something in her eyes I had never noticed before. Real, unfeigned shame. "I don't know if you knew or not," I said. "It doesn't matter to me anymore. But don't come here again. There's nothing left between us. You are a stranger to me." Carol opened her mouth to say something, but I closed the door. It was one of those moments when I physically felt myself cutting the last thread that tied me to my past life. It was painful, but after the pain came a strange, unfamiliar relief. 6 months later, the trial took place. It was a gloomy, overcast day, the air heavy, as if nature itself was reflecting the gravity of the proceedings. I came to the courthouse as the victim and the main witness. Chloe, Kevin, and Eleanor were by my side. Their presence felt like an invisible shield, giving me the strength to face everything head-on. I saw Andrew again in the defendant's box. He had lost a lot of weight and looked haggard. The baggy prison jumpsuit made him look pathetic. He was no longer the elegant, self-assured head of the department. When our eyes met, he quickly looked down, not daring to look at me. Maybe it was the last shred of conscience left in him. Or maybe it was just the cowardice of a criminal facing his victim. Next to him sat Isaac, also thinner, with darting eyes, nervously wringing his hands. When he saw me, he turned away. The trial proceeded without any major dramatic twists because the evidence was irrefutable and exhaustive. The audio recording was played in the courtroom. Every monstrous word from Andrew and Isaac echoed off the walls, making everyone present shudder. My testimony, Anna's testimony, Maria's testimony, the financial evidence, the recovered messages, the expert analyses, it all wove together into such a dense net of justice that it was impossible to escape. As the prosecutor read the indictment, I watched Andrew, and I saw his shoulders slump lower with each new fact, with each new piece of evidence. He sat hunched over, staring at the floor, and in that moment, he didn't look like a dangerous predator but a pathetic, crushed man. In his final statement, Andrew did not apologize to me. He only asked the court for a lenient sentence so he would have a chance to start a new life. Hearing this, I could only laugh bitterly to myself. He wants to start over. What about my life, Anna's life, and her mother's life? Who would give us back what was taken from us? Isaac was less restrained. He wept in the dock, stammering out apologies, saying his debts had cornered him, that Andrew had used him. But his tears could no longer change anything. He had made his choice and had to answer for it. Finally, after deliberation, the court delivered its verdict. For attempted murder and insurance fraud, Andrew was sentenced to 20 years in a maximum security prison. As an accomplice, Isaac received 15 years. Both were ordered to pay me full restitution for all material and emotional damages. As the judge read the sentence, a dead silence fell over the courtroom. I sat motionless, feeling something heavy and dark that had been pressing on my chest for all these months slowly begin to lift and dissipate. It wasn't joy, no. It was something else. Justice. Incomplete, imperfect, but justice nonetheless. Chloe squeezed my hand tightly. Kevin placed a hand on my shoulder. Eleanor gave me a silent nod of professional satisfaction. I walked out of the courthouse and took a deep breath of the Boston air. It was cool and damp, smelling of the harbor and autumn leaves, and for the first time in a very long time, that air felt clean. A few months after the trial, I finally underwent the heart surgery. This time, I was haunted by neither fear nor terror, only a calm and complete trust. The operation was performed by the best cardiac surgeons in Boston. And what was most important to me, they were people with a conscience, true doctors, faithful to their oath. Before they wheeled me into the operating room, Chloe held my hand and whispered, "You've got this, my friend. I'll be right here when you wake up." And Kevin stood nearby, serious and worried, also promising to wait. The surgery was a success. When I came to in the recovery room and saw the smiling faces of Chloe and Kevin beside me, I knew I had truly been reborn. My worn, wounded heart, in both the literal and figurative sense, finally had a chance to beat steadily and calmly. The recovery was long, several weeks in the hospital, then months of rehabilitation. But every day, I felt my strength returning, my body, exhausted by stress and illness, gradually coming back to life. Chloe visited me every evening, bringing books and home-cooked meals. Kevin called every morning. Even Maria came to the hospital once with a bouquet of daisies and homemade cookies, and I cried with gratitude. When my health was fully restored, the first thing I did was sell the house on Beacon Hill. That place was soaked through with false memories and pain. I didn't want to keep anything from that dark past. The buyer offered a good price. Holding the proceeds in my hands, I felt no joy, only a quiet, calm relief, as if I had finally shed an immense burden from my shoulders. I moved into a small, cozy apartment in a quiet, green neighborhood near a park. There were tall poplar trees outside my window, a playground in the courtyard, and old ladies feeding pigeons on benches. A simple, ordinary life, which was exactly what I needed now. I began to learn to live again, to take care of myself, to find joy in small things. I read books, listened to music, and grew violets and geraniums on my balcony. Sometimes Chloe and I would drive out of the city to quiet towns in Vermont, wander through autumn forests, pick mushrooms, and just sit in comfortable silence, enjoying the peace. Those trips were more healing than any medicine. With the considerable funds from my parents' inheritance, which I had managed to preserve, I didn't spend it on luxury. What I had been through taught me that true value isn't measured in money. I thought for a long time about what to do with the funds, and finally made a decision that gave my life new meaning. With the help of Eleanor and Chloe, I established a charitable foundation, Anna's Hope. Its sole purpose was to pay for heart surgeries for patients from low-income families, for those who couldn't afford to save their own lives. I wanted to turn my pain, my story, into hope for other people. Working on the foundation consumed me completely. My team and I found patients from all over the country, made arrangements with the best clinics, and found surgeons willing to work on a charitable basis. Every case was personal to me. I saw in the eyes of these people the same fear I once felt, and I did everything I could to ensure their story ended differently than mine could have. The foundation's first patient was a 6-year-old boy from a small town in the Midwest. His mother, a young widow working shifts at a factory, couldn't afford her son's surgery. When I first saw this little boy thin, with huge, serious eyes, my heart ached. After a successful operation, his mother hugged me and cried, repeating, thank you, You gave me my son back." In that moment, I understood what was worth living for. Every patient saved, every family reunited, was a form of healing for me. I had lost a false family, but I had gained a real one, a huge one, made up of people united not by blood, but by gratitude and hope. Time passed. A year went by, then two. My life settled into a rhythm of surprising, unfamiliar peace. The foundation grew and thrived. We helped dozens of people, gave life to many hearts that had seemed doomed. I was no longer that weak girl, dependent on someone else's love. Now I was a strong, independent woman who had chosen her own path and fought for her right to life and justice. I no longer thought about Andrew constantly. He still appeared in my dreams sometimes, but they were no longer nightmares that woke me in a cold sweat. They were faded, washed-out frames from an old film, evoking not pain, but only a distant echo of former feelings. I learned to forgive. Not him, no. I learned to forgive myself for trusting, for not seeing the obvious, for letting someone else's lies define my life. I let go of the hatred and resentment because I realized that holding on to them meant continuing to live in his prison, even when he was already behind bars. One late autumn day, when the trees in Boston had almost shed their leaves and the air smelled of the coming winter, I was sitting in my small office at the foundation, sorting through documents. The phone rang. It was Maria. "Clara, hello. I just wanted to tell you, things have really changed at the hospital. There's a new department head, a good, honest man. The young doctors work differently now, and everyone knows about you and your foundation. The nurses say, 'Now that's a real woman. She didn't break, she turned a tragedy into something good. I'm so proud to know you.'" I smiled. The simple words of a simple woman, but they meant more to me than any award. That evening, on my way home, I received a small package with no return address, no sender's name, only a postmark from some distant town I had never heard of. I opened the package curiously. Inside, there was no letter, only a postcard. It depicted a vast field of sunflowers, bathed in golden sunlight, bright, joyful, alive. I turned the postcard over. On the back, not a single word, just one line written in a delicate, familiar hand, "Wishing you a peaceful life." I looked at that line and couldn't help but smile. Anna. I knew for certain it was from her. After our meeting at the cafe, she had disappeared as if she'd vanished into thin air, leaving no trace. She probably didn't want anyone to disturb her quiet life. I respected her decision and only silently prayed for her well-being. This postcard was her answer. She was alive, she was okay, and she was still thinking of me. I placed the postcard on my desk, next to a small potted cactus that Chloe had given me. I walked to the window and looked outside. The autumn sun was setting over Boston, painting the sky in warm orange tones. The rooftops glowed softly in the last rays of light. Somewhere below, children were laughing, a dog was barking, a streetcar rumbled by the simple, quiet life of a big city. My life had gone through a terrible storm. It felt as if the waves were about to swallow me, pull me to the bottom. But the storm passed. After the downpour, the sun shone again, and in the place of what was destroyed, something new had grown stronger, more real. My journey began as a naive, blindly in love girl who entrusted her life to a man who turned out to be a monster. Through betrayal, fear, escape, and struggle, that path led me here to a quiet apartment with violets on the balcony, to work filled with meaning, to people who loved me for real. What lies ahead, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll meet a good man I can trust. Maybe I'll continue to live alone, surrounded by friends, my work, my small world. But it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I have found peace within myself. I know that whatever happens tomorrow, I can handle it, because I have already been through the worst and did not break. Because beside me are Chloe, Kevin, Eleanor, Maria, and somewhere far away, in an unknown town, is Anna, whose postcard of sunflowers sits on my desk like a small beacon of hope. I stepped away from the window, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat back down at my desk. On the computer screen was an application for assistance from another patient. a 2-year-old woman, a mother of 3, a heart condition, no funds for an operation. I opened her file and began to work. Outside, it was getting dark, the streetlights were coming on. Boston was wrapping itself in its familiar evening light, and I sat in my small office, doing what I do best, giving hope, the very same hope that a quiet, brave young woman named Anna had once given me. Dear listeners who have accompanied me until the end of my story, how did you find today's tale? I'm curious about the impression it has left in your hearts and the thoughts it has sparked in you. Please feel free to share your impressions and opinions in the comments. I will carefully read each of them. The likes and subscriptions you give me are the greatest source of strength and motivation for creating better stories in the future. Please don't forget to do so. I sincerely wish that your life is always filled with happiness and good fortune, and that the warm light in your hearts never fades.